This video is to determine the side of the body from which a scapula was taken and to show you the different features of the scapula. The scapula is a very busy bone. There are 18 different muscular attachments on this bone. The scapula, also known as the shoulder blade, articulates with the clavicle on the acromial end at what is called the acromial process of the scapula. Keep in mind that the scapula is located on the posterior body wall, but is a bone associated with the upper extremity. Now, if we look at the scapula, there are many things you can tell. It looks somewhat like a triangle, and most of us would say an inverted triangle with a point at the bottom. It has a border that will be closer to the vertebral column. So if we look at this articulated skeleton, we have a vertebral border, also known as the medial border. We have a lateral border, and we have a superior border. So if we look at this scapula, imagine it, I will show it from the front, imagine through me to the vertebral column, a vertebral or medial border, a lateral border, and a superior border. In order to know those borders, you must know the front of the scapula from the back of the scapula. The front of the scapula is a very shallow depression known as the subscapular fossa. The posterior portion of the scapula is divided into two large fossas, and they are divided by a structure known as the scapular spine. That should be a hint to you as to the front and the back. Spines are generally in the back. Your spinal column is in your back. So just remember, the spine of the scapula is the back of the scapula. The fossa, or depression, above the spine of the scapula is known as the supraspinous fossa. Supra meaning above, spinous referring to the spine. A depression is a fossa. So the supraspinous fossa literally means the depression above the spine. Supraspinous fossa. Below the spine of the scapula, we have another large fossa known as the infraspinous fossa. Below the spine fossa. If we follow the spine of the scapula laterally, we see that it ends as a large process known as the acromion, or the acromion process. This is the process that articulates with the clavicle. The scapula attaches to the humerus to make the glenohumeral joint, or the shoulder joint. As we come across the top of the scapula, we will see another small process, projection, called the coracoid process. The coracoid process and the acromion process. Along the superior border of the scapula, just before we reach that coracoid process, there is a notch in the scapula known as the suprascapular notch. Located just below the coracoid process is an area on the lateral edge of the scapula known as the glenoid fossa, or the glenoid cavity. This is the socket portion of the ball and socket joint we will call the shoulder. So if we look on this particular skeleton, we can see here is the glenoid fossa, and the head of the humerus fits into the glenoid fossa to form the shoulder joint. So to recap the structures of the scapula: the medial or vertebral border, the lateral border, and the superior border. The lower portion is known as the inferior angle. The entire front of the scapula is the subscapular fossa. Turning the scapula around for a posterior view, we can see the spine of the scapula. Above the spine, we have the supraspinous fossa. Below the spine, the infraspinous fossa. At the end of the spine, the lateral end, we have the acromion process. Following along the top of the superior border, we will see the suprascapular notch, and then a process known as the coracoid process. Below the coracoid process and slightly laterally, we have the glenoid fossa, sometimes referred to as the glenoid cavity. So use these features to determine left or right on this scapula. I can tell that this is a left scapula because I know I am looking at the front of the scapula. I know that the humerus and my arm attach laterally, and I know that the spine belongs in the back. So spine in the back, humerus laterally, we have a left scapula.